This is The Long Way to the Game, only on Megaphone Rugby.
Welcome back to The Long Way to the Game. Paul has been all over the world. We started our first conversation in Kukuza, or where was it? Paul, Kruger National Park somewhere.
It was just south of the Kruger, of Kruger.
And then Nelspruit Airport, somewhat exotic. And where are you today?
Today I'm in London Heathrow, getting ready to board a flight for Euston. So I'm starting my way home now.
So if you get to Euston, you're going to stay over? You're going to go to your island? How does that work?
I'm going to stay a number of days there. Our son is in Euston, and then we'll head back to the island, most likely on the weekend.
And is the island still standing?
Yes, I hope so. There were quite a lot of storms there, but I think everything is still good.
Yeah, just for give a bit of context, that you're in the Caribbean, and we know there was a huge hurricane going through the other day. How far away from you guys was it?
Yes, it wasn't too close. We felt the effects. The good news about our part of the Caribbean, which is kind of in the western side of the Caribbean, the hurricanes don't often hit there. They kind of move in the direction and then they veer more north. So I'd say rather than every year having to deal with hurricanes, we every 5-6 years maybe have a more serious experience.
The reason why I'm asking is because, like I just said to you, we had a huge storm here last night. I mean, it went on for hours and hours. Thunder and lightning and hail, and the cats and dogs were all up in arms. And I was just thinking about those poor people sitting in a hurricane and having to wait it out and just hoping for the best. I mean, that must be quite a scary thing.
Yes, on the island, like our island also doesn't have a lot of high areas. So if there is a real serious hurricane, then in most cases, the whole island will evacuate or at least try to evacuate, because there's not a lot of places to go then. So you just have to ride it out.
Anyway, sorry, I digressed. This is a rugby channel after all. So let's talk about your Wales trip. I mean, what an exciting thing this was. It was probably the highlight of your trip, not just for the rugby, but for everything that went on around it. And first and foremost, tell me where you stayed.
So, yes, I would say too, it most likely is the part of the trip that Krishna and I are the most excited about. Not as much for the game, but everything around the game. And so we stayed in the hotel where the Springboks stayed. And that just changed the entire complexion of the trip, because we ran into them in the elevator or lift, as you'd say, every day, and at breakfast and before the game and after the game and stuff like that. So it's just a completely different experience. And I have to thank you a little bit for that, Envy. It wasn't something that we had thought about beforehand. We didn't have a hotel in Wales at the last day in Ireland. And I reached out to you and said, do you have any idea where they may stay? And you came back. I don't know. I didn't ask any questions, with a tip. And the tip turned out to be a pretty good tip.
The Megaphone community. Talk about that.
Yes.
We'll get back to the community just now. But one of the things that you had to experience in this hotel was Dwayne Vermeulen in a towel in the lobby. I mean, really, what's going on there?
Yeah, I think because they're there for the whole week and they take over a large part of the hotel, it becomes almost like a second home to them. And so it's not just Dwayne. I sent you the photo of Dwayne in the lobby with his towel on. I think his room key stopped working maybe. But other players as well throughout the week, walking around in the hotel with towels and a t-shirt, or in some cases, towels and no t-shirt and stuff like that, as they move between their rooms and the team room and the conference rooms where they're working. It's very cool.
But now the obvious question is, what are they like in real life? We know what they are like on the field and after the game, all, larger than life, smiling for the cameras, taking selfies with everyone. But away from the publicity, when they're alone in the hotels, everything else, what did you experience them? What were they like?
I would say that for me is maybe the highlight of the trip. There's an old saying that says, never meet your heroes because you will be disappointed. And isn't that all of our fears? I don't have too many heroes, but is that you'll meet them and they're not good people, or they're arrogant or whatever. And I'd say this trip just showed, at least as best as I could tell, that what you see with these guys on TV is real. Because, in the hotel, I don't think for the whole period, all the time they're walking around, people are asking for signatures, children are going up, asking to take photos. I don't think you can fake it for the whole time. At some point, your true colors will shine through. And I would say to a person, everyone that we interacted with from the Springbok team, and every interaction we witnessed of a fan talking to one of them, asking for something to be signed, asking for a photo, was just met with people that seemed like very down to earth, very patient, kind, generous with their time. I'm trying not to sound like a fanboy, but Krishna and I were a little bit of that there. But genuinely, and we had a couple of other events that we went to. You had advertised on the channel, like there was a night with Sia and Eben, like with a small group of people, a charity event with a charity auction, and Sia and Eben were there, and you had some time to talk to them and take photos. And I'd say really just super kind. Like my view of them has just been enhanced. Whatever I thought of the individuals and the team and the character of the team, Krishna and I just came away feeling even better, prouder. And it's a weird thing to say, but it feels almost like they're our sons, and you just your chest swells even more with pride. And I am worried that Krishna is going to try to adopt Wilco Louw because she met him in the elevator and took a selfie with him. And since then, she hasn't been able to talk about him and just how nice he was, how friendly he was, how gentle, just like you'd imagine almost, which could be possible, like a gentle giant teddy bear type of thing. And if ever I get the email of his mother somewhere, I'm going to write her just that whatever she did is she raised a good son, because I met him separately from Krishna later on and was the exact same experience.
That's quite interesting. Obviously, he learned those good manners in Pretoria while he was at the Bulls, and we'll have to see how it goes when he goes to the Stormers next year. But anyway, I have to, get that little dig in there.
Yes, I did talk to him about his life decisions, and that I feel like he made a good decision to go to the Stormers.
No problem,
we did discuss that.
And what did he say? Was he excited about it? I mean, yes.
No, I'm just joking. We didn't talk about the Stormers. No. We talked a little bit about the game, and he said his body was really hurting, and his head was hurting a little bit too.
After the game or before the game?
After the game. I spoke to him after the game.
Well, you just mentioned earlier on that you didn't want to be a fanboy, but I know she's probably going to, take me on for this, but Krishna was a bit of a fangirl sometimes, wasn't she? There was a couple of those players that she really liked to talk to.
She enjoyed it very much. We're not used to, because we don't live in South Africa, we're not used to be called Umintani. And all the players, which are these big men, these heroes, gladiators, warriors you look up to, and so like every player that talked to her would call her Tani and offer to take the selfies, assuming that us older people don't know how to take selfies and stuff like that. But she really did. I think both of us, but Krishna really did enjoy the experience. And I think it's a little bit of just, meeting people that you admire and have watched. And we've talked about our story and how much rugby and the Springboks mean to us. But there is a second thing. They are South Africa's team. And so we feel, rightfully or wrongfully, that they're our team. And so there's a bit of, I think, like maternal instinct that almost kicks in when you're with them, and when you see them multiple days, and on the second day, some of them will greet you because they remember you from the previous day and stuff like that. So yes, it was for us a unique experience, and it just added another level to our trip, which was already pretty awesome.
I just wanted to say about that selfie taking. I was at Loftus once and I bumped into Kurtley Arendse, and I was trying to take a selfie, and he took the phone from my hand and took it on my behalf. Clearly saw same year. I'm not an ignoramus, but I'm not the best selfie taker. That's quite funny.
And under pressure, it's even worse. Like, I feel like Dwayne Vermeulen helped out when we were with Bongi in the lift too. And I think it's because I first was on video mode and then on some other mode. And then at some point he said, well, let that help. And I accepted it.
Just a last question before we move on. Again, with your slightly American accent and then talking Afrikaans suddenly, how did they experience that? Were they a bit taken aback, maybe?
It never came up. I guess they're used to talking to lots of people with different accents, so it never really came up. Sometimes we talked Afrikaans, sometimes we talked English, and sometimes we talked both, but it didn't really come up.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about that night with Sia and Eben. And I was itching to say something about what you told me there, but I couldn't because then I would give the whole thing away. But Eben told you something about the box strategy for Saturday. That's not a 7-1 bench, but a 6-2 bench. Tell me about that.
It really was kind of a funny joke, I think. There was a discussion going on. The MC, or the person that was interviewing them, was Matt Pierce from Supersport, which we also got to meet, and super nice gentleman. But so he was interviewing them, and they were talking about his and Sia's friendship and how they've been together from when they were very young, actually, and come a long way together. But at some point in there, it came up that when Eben was 16 years old in high school, he was playing for the B team in his high school at wing. It must have been before he had a growth spurt or something. And then Eben said, in the news, there's a lot of discussion about the 7-1 split for the weekend against Wales, but he's there to tell people that it's not. It's a 6-2 split, and that he's covering wing. And of course, that was super funny to everyone in the audience. I would actually not be surprised with Rassie if he does have a plan like that to cover more positions with the forwards when he does have a 7-1 split.
No, that evening was quite an interesting one, almost an eye-opener for you and I. We've been having a lot of discussions about this little Megaphone community that we're building. And as luck would have it, we invited two of our followers to the channel. We selected them randomly. So tell me about what the evening was about. You mentioned the charity, and then talk to us about the guests that we invited, and how small a world this actually is.
Yes, I would say so. The event was, we saw it online. It was advertised as just an event with Eben and Sia and a dinner. And normally, Krishna and I would not go to an event like that. It's just our introverted nature. You have to hang out with people that you don't know. But it mentioned something about an auction and that would be for charity, but it really didn't highlight it very much. It seemed kind of like a side note, almost like maybe they would auction off some small thing. So as you say, you posted on the channel, anyone that's in Cardiff that would like to go should let us know. And then a bunch of people did, and we picked 2 people. And they were very nice people. We had dinner together with them. Then like the charity auction raffle happened. It was for a children's hospital children's hospital charity called Noah's Ark. And Krishna and I were bidding on some items. It's mainly like signed memorabilia and stuff like that. And it really was just a good experience. We felt good about it. And then when the night ended, one of the people that came, one of the Megaphone people that joined us as guests, came up to me to thank me for, inviting them to the event, said he enjoyed it very much, enjoyed the discussion with Eben and Sia. But what made it extra special for him is that he and his family had a personal connection to the charity. So right now I have goosebumps. Me and you say that often, but there's something about your channel and the Springboks. So he said, he didn't know that when he came to the event, but that this charity and the children's hospital that they support had a direct link to something that he and his family and his daughter involved his daughter. And so it meant even more for him. And then after the event, he WhatsApped me photos of his daughter and him with things from the hospital and stuff like that. So I don't want to share, I think it's a personal story, but for me, it just showed how amazingly small in one way, and then interconnected our lives are. If you think a month ago, you and I didn't know one another. And somehow I felt like Krishna and I went to this event because of the Megaphone link. If it was just us, we most likely would have passed. But we thought it was a good opportunity to go and do something related to what we're trying to do with the podcast. Then we randomly picked one of our listeners or viewers, and they have a direct connection to the charity. So for me, that was just like extra cool. It just was the night was special already, but it just made it more special in a very personal way. And then if this guest tells you his story of why he started listening to Megaphone and stuff like that, it's even more in line with the thing that you and I've talked about a little bit of a community that live in different places, that have different backgrounds, but want to connect back and stay connected to South Africa. And the Springboks are helping to do that.
All right. Let's talk about Sia a little bit. At that evening, you talked about the love they have for each other. You mentioned something about Sia being a little bit jealous of Eben's followers, or Eben's admirers.
So first of all, like even before this, you see the bromance between Sia and Eben. And plus, that they've known one another for a long time. And Eben has been almost like a big brother to Sia. And when you see them on stage talking, now, look, I know that good speakers can fake chemistry and stuff like that. I just don't feel it's a fake chemistry. You can see they have a very easygoing, they joke with one another. They're very complimentary of one another. And throughout the interview, Sia mentioned that Eben really likes his smile, and that was the first thing. And then when Eben was talking at some point about the relationship, he says, Sia always says, that he loves Eben, but that someone in the audience, another guy, a visitor in the audience, had also told Eben when he came up to get a signature that he loves him. And so Eben said, I have options now, to which Sia challenged the person in the room to go behind the stage with him so that they could work it out. It's another funny, I know it's not a serious moment, but it's just a funny added to the spirit of the evening. And in my mind, kind of confirms just that there is a special bond between these players, which they talked about also in a more serious way during Q&A later on. And, Sia was clear. He said, look, all of us we're not all best friends. They're different. He said, but we all understand one another, our different cultures, and we accept one another. And he said, I just want to be really clear. People think we're tight. We're even tighter as a group. And I feel like, I feel like that is true, also from watching them at the hotel and at the field and stuff like that. But I feel like we can see it in the way they play. There's something about them which is more than just, 23 or 35 well-paid athletes that are just doing a job.
Now, you mentioned Sia said, come to the back of the stage so we can sort it out. And he let something slip about the Springboks strategy for every game. And it's much simpler than we thought it was, don't you think? Tell me about that.
That was actually for me the funniest thing maybe, because it clearly wasn't like scripted or whatever. Matt had asked them, I forget the context, about something about their detailed planning for games and things like that. And so Eben was talking about if you remember in the 2019 World Cup, the semifinal against Wales, I think it's actually referenced a little bit in Chasing the Sun too. But that Rassie came into the locker room like 45 minutes before the game or before they're going up and says, look, I know we planned this and I know we've had this strategy of how we're going to play, but I've been thinking about it all night and all morning. And I think we really have to kind of change. And we just have to go in and out physical them and just F them up. That's our strategy for this game. And it was 30 or 45 minutes before the game. But once they said that, then Sia said, if you think about that, that's our strategy for every game. And there's a part of me that really believes that. Krishna and I often joke, if I had to give a team talk to the Springboks, what would I say? And I'd say, well, based on everything I've seen from Rassie on Chasing the Sun, you just have to say, hey, we have to go in there and F them up. I wish I could curse like Harry. Then I'd say it in Afrikaans now. Because I was
wondering how you're going to handle that F word.
No, I've learned my lesson through Harry.
Yeah. No, Harry can get away with stuff. You and I suppose, we're too straight-laced, almost, if that's the right word.
I don't want to get a yellow or a red card.
Yeah. And we can get them quite easily on this channel. Tell you what. Right, let's moving on. After this event, you're going to invite to another event the next night with John Smith and Dan Bigger. And specifically, Dan Bigger to you was a bit of an attraction because we have a guest coming up later on in the show that people will know about. But tell me about that evening. That was a completely different thing at all. Completely different thing.
Yes, and it was completely unplanned. I think it had to do a little bit with Krishna and I bid on one item in particular, which was a signed shirt from Ibn and Sia. And the thing got a little bit out of hand in terms of it didn't stop. There were competitive people involved with something that they felt an emotional need for. But so the people that organized the event said, hey, if you're in town tomorrow, we are having this event with John Smith and Dan Bigger. Come and join us. And so we went because we were on this, fanboy high of we're meeting all our heroes, seeing kind of inside, talking to them. Why would we stop? And so then the next day we did go. It was an afternoon event. It did feel a little bit different. I'd say the evening event had a lot more what felt like rugby fans. The dress code was more or less formal. Lots of people had Springbok jerseys on, and it just felt more informal. And there was a lot more access to the players, either because of them, even though they were time constrained, because it was basically one night before the final day before the game. So the Dan Bigger and John Smith event was different, but it was nice to meet them too and to hear from them. So it was basically a similar kind of format, is an interview of them by Matt Pierce, and then a little bit of time. But unfortunately, Dan Bigger, almost as soon as the interview was done, left. And so I couldn't. My big goal was to get a signature for Huw Griffin. You and I had bought him a Springbok shirt in Cardiff, the away team shirt. And so my goal was to get it signed by Dan Bigger. But when we thought, oh, we'll have time to do it, Dan was gone. So in the end, the shirt wasn't signed. But I think maybe Huw is just for a week or two denying his Welsh ancestry to wait till the pain subsides from the game.
Shame, man. We'll get to that just now. I mean, I've never seen him that emotional, and I can understand it. I think back to 57-0 against the All Blacks, what we felt like. So that's a story for a little bit later in this video. But talk to me about John Smith. He told us a couple of nice, interesting tales about our old favorite, fan favorite, Bakkies Botha. I want to hear a couple of those stories.
Yes. So it was funny. I assume John has many stories about Bakkie. He says like a ref's whistle is like your mother when she calls your full name out. When the ref blows it long and hard, you know you're in trouble. And he says whenever he was playing with Bakkies, when the ref really blew the whistle long and hard, he always assumed that the words would next come out of his mouth would be green number, I forget what Bakkies' number was, 4, green number 4. And he says that was almost invariably the case. And he told a story of where he would then have to talk the ref down from being, I guess those days were a little different in terms of cards and stuff, especially if he tells you what Bakkies did in the scrums. And he said he was talking to a ref and the ref was saying, look, you guys are on the edge all the time right now. It's got to stop. Otherwise, I'm going to give a card. And he says at that very moment, Bakkies comes from behind, puts his arm on the ref and says, but ref, I love living on the edge. And John says it just took all the wind of his sails trying to convince the ref that the Springboks were not in trouble. So that was one. And then another one where he said where the ref was, it was Bakkies had done something. And he says, while Bakkies and him are protesting their innocence to the ref on the big screen, John sees Bakkies headbutting the opposing player in clear view. And he says, so he thought, well, There's nothing more to say here. This is going to end badly. But Bucky said, no, that's just a bad angle. It's the video is from a bad angle. And it reminded me. It reminded me of how much rugby has changed. If you think of from 10, 20 years ago, how much more, I don't want to say violent it was, but how much more inappropriate behavior was part of the game versus now.
Well, there's a discussion for another day with what's inappropriate and what's appropriate. But we'll talk about that just now. The last story that I heard is that Bakkies referred to himself in the third person, and they would just after halftime he would say, "Bakkies is moeg, Bakkies is tired," and he would just walk off the field whether he was called off or not. That's quite an interesting one.
I've heard that story. I've heard that story multiple times, but it didn't come up from John in this case.
Right, we have to move on. I would love to spend another hour talking about those stories, but typically you would walk around the city the day before. Dublin was filled with South Africans, more South Africans than others, than Irish supporters. John Robbie said you were wrong. I don't know if you watched that video. He said the Irish congregate in their clubs. That's quite an interesting observation.
It was really, I loved the conversation with John, and I wish I had talked to him before being in Ireland, because there definitely, it explains the phenomenon that I said to you, that we really just didn't see Irish supporters in paraphernalia before the game. And then like 30 minutes before the game, as if out of nowhere, they all just kind of showed up at the stadium. And I feel like it makes sense then. All the clubs, they must have just come at the last minute to the game. And then, so it was a great show with John. I enjoyed it very much.
It's always a ride. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
The thing with John is he's got so many stories. You have to be careful about what which road you lead him down to, because, like I just said with the Bakkie story, I would listen to that all day long. So I have to sometimes say, let's talk about something else. I love talking to him. Anyway, let's talk about Cardiff, the city. Compared to Dublin, and even compared to Turin, the first city that you visited, what was it like being a South African rugby supporter the day before a big match like this?
I think it was, once again, it's a city that was, at least the parts that we were, a very nice city, really interesting. The fan experience for us was different than Dublin, though, because in Dublin, we were staying close to a central part of Dublin. And so when we went out, all the restaurants and everything were there, and the South African supporters were there. So you saw them on the street. In Cardiff, until game day and until we walked to the game, we didn't actually see many South African supporters or Welsh supporters. But I think some of it had to do with where we were staying. The team hotel for the Springboks is a little bit out of the way. I'm assuming they pick it that way almost, so that they're, and so it's a nice area where there also are restaurants by a bay, but there just were less people, etc. It's not like right by the stadium is a very vibrant part of town. And so when we walked to the stadium on game day, first you saw again lots of South African supporters, and then closer to the stadium, Welsh supporters. But before the game, we didn't have more. And frankly, we were, in 2 of the days in these events, the charity events, and we spent more time at the hotel. I hope you don't hold it against me. I know my job was to be out on the street talking to fans, but I prefer to just hang out in the lobby of the hotel and see what was going on in the hotel. I will never be able, I feel now, to go to another Springbok game without staying in the Springbok Hotel, MD. So I'm just saying already right now, you should be talking to your sources. You have to be talking, because it really just was extra cool.
Yeah. That took a bit of doing to get that hotel name. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Many years in the future. Yeah.
I owe you for that one.
But then you mentioned talking to the stadium now, but you were actually in a race. You were a race against the Springbok bus, because you waited outside the hotel for the bus to leave, and then you wanted to see if you can make it to the stadium before the bus got there. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it was a tough call, because I've told you we like to be at the stadium early and to kind of experience the whole stadium thing. But so we're in the hotel, we know the team are going to leave, and we feel like this is like a unique experience to see them board the bus, get some video footage for you, etc. And we're about a 35-minute walk away from the stadium. And so we wait, and no one will tell you when they're leaving. there was I sent you a photo of a very nice gentleman, looks like he works for the CIA, but he's security there. And so he came to tell us that they were going to clear out the lobby of the hotel at a certain time, because just before the game, they don't want like people going up to the players asking for signatures and autographs. So he was just giving us a heads up. And so I said to him, can you tell me like when they're going to go? And he said, no, unfortunately I can't. And we were working backwards from when the game starts and when they normally do their warm-ups to try to guess. And then at some point he came and said, you may want to go outside now. And I said, are you clearing out the lobby? He said, no. And so I said, do you know what time they're leaving? He said, no, I can't tell you, but I'm just saying you may want to go outside right now. So we went out. I forgot what the Rays. So we stood there in the cold. We laughed with the security gentleman that we thought he was just messing with us because he knew his team was going to lose. And so he was just making us freeze to death. But so we got to watch the Springbok team board the bus. And then Krishna and I said, okay, now our goal is to get to the stadium before their bus gets there, which I don't think it should take the bus 35 minutes, but we were hoping there was traffic. So we walked like crazy, like two old people doing that kind of Olympic speed walking to the stadium. And we got to the stadium, and I think if we had been just a little bit, we got distracted by taking some videos of South Africans that were really dressed very cool. And when we got to the stadium, we asked the police, because there was clearly they were waiting there. The police were there, everything. And we said, have we missed the buses? He said, no, the Welsh bus is coming right now. And we said, but what about the Springbok bus? He said, you just missed it by 2 minutes. So we didn't get but we got the Welsh bus, and they have a tradition where there are like police on mounted horses in front of the bus. So at least we got that part, but we missed. I am kind of annoyed. I have only one negative comment about the team. I asked if we could just drive on the bus with them to the stadium, but they said no. And I really don't understand why they wouldn't let Krishna and me, two innocent old people, just going on the bus.
Let me tell you, Paul, I mean, you're an introvert, supposedly. And there's a saying in Afrikaans called voor op die wa, and that's exactly what you were.
you should teach you that. I did not ask that. I knew where my limits were, but I did ask the security guy that I thought I had a good rapport with. I said, come on, just look away and let me go on the bus when the team had all boarded, and let me take one selfie with the whole team. I thought I would have gotten much bonus points from you, Envy, if I had on the bus a selfie with the team. But alas, not even that I succeeded in. Next time I'm sending Krishna to ask that. That's my strategy.
She seems to be able to open doors that you can't. Clearly.
I really feel, I'm not sure why, but I feel like next time that's my strategy.
Okay, now let's talk about the stadium. Famous for the singing. So obviously the first question that comes to mind is, what does it look like? What is the stadium like? And secondly, how about those anthems?
So the stadium is a really nice stadium. And I'm loving going to the different stadiums because each of them is unique in some way. So the Principality, one thing is it's right in the middle of town. Like, it's just there are restaurants, and then the next moment, just the stadium is there. So that's number one. Number two, it really is a beautiful stadium. The roof was closed, so it's very nice weather in there. And when the roof is closed, it's even louder inside the stadium. But then, we talked about in Dublin that our seats were in the nosebleed section where we were 6 rows from the top. So in Cardiff, I actually went out of my way to try to get like really good tickets on the halfway line, close to the field, and right by the tunnel, so you could see the players go out. And so I thought, I have magic seats. And they were really good in terms of position on the field. But no one told me, and you can't understand it until you're in the stadium, that in Cardiff, the layers of the stadium, the different tiers, they're like, there's the lower tier, the middle tier, and the upper tier. Well, the middle tier comes right over the lower tier, very low down over it, and kind of hangs over it unless you're sitting in the first, I would say, 10 rows. So it looks a little bit, watching the game from that tier. We were in row 26, I think, like you're watching it from inside a tunnel. You actually cannot see the
Oh,
roof of the stadium or the sky, and it distracts from the game. I don't want to sound like a person that is complaining about excellent. There were really good seats, and I'm glad I was at the map. But it changed the experience completely if you cannot see the roof of the stadium and the sky,
mm.
both in terms of how it feels and looks. But then if you think the Springboks put up a lot of up and unders. And so the way an up and under works there is you see the ball go up for the first, I don't know, 10 meters, then you lose sight of it. Then you have to look for where it's going to come down by watching the player, and then it enters the screen again, basically from your tunnel view. So it's just a different setup. It was very loud, the stadium, even though I think I looked at the attendance numbers, it was less than 70% full. And the tickets were dirt cheap. Like you could get tickets at the stadium for nothing, for uh, £20, I think. And someone told me that in the past few games, the Welsh Rugby Union actually have given away tickets for free at the last, but it was still less than 70% full, which is a bit sad. The anthems were really, really nice because they have this, they have a marching band that they march onto the field, and then a big, big Welsh choir singing the anthems, and the Welsh fans, even though it was 70%, were still very loud. But I would say here, the South African fans, I don't know. I feel like 40, 50% of the fans were South African, and the South African anthem was very loud. And then during the game, the South African fans were very, very loud. When tries were being scored, Shosha Losa was being sung. It really felt almost a little bit like a home game, and the Welsh fans were quite, I'd say, muted at the game. It must have been a hard game to watch for
I was
them.
about to say, if your team loses 73-0, I suppose you'd be quiet as well. I was quiet at Loftus on Saturday, I tell
Yeah.
you what. I didn't have much to say.
Yes. I had sympathy for you. Well, I had a little sympathy for you as well. As I said, I do cheer for the South African teams when they're playing international competitors now, but between you and the Lions, it's 50-50 for me who I cheer for.
51-49 for the Bulls.
Yeah,
Come on.
okay.
Let's be honest. Yeah. Right. Let's talk about the game. I mean, 73-0. What else is there to say? Biggest thing for me is the Welsh didn't score any points. They fought valiantly. And right towards the end, Eben Etzebeth had a bit of a, I don't know what went wrong there, but he just lost it. Obviously, something happened before that, which we'll get to the, whatever the story is later in this week, I suppose. But what a disappointing end to a fantastic tour, don't you think?
Yes, I'll start there. For me, it was the only real negative. It's just like in the dying minute for that to happen, it just seemed, it was just like a sad thing, and it kind of overshadowed. For Springbok fans, look, the game didn't have the tension and the pressure and the intensity of the game against Ireland or some of the other games that we've played. But for a Springbok fan, was an enjoyable game to watch. Like, frankly, Krishna and I talked about it. It's the first game we've watched the Springboks live, which has not been like a heart attack inducing kind of game. And that was fun for one time, just to watch. And in my mind, they actually played a really good game if you look at it. They played like a game. If you imagine that you can do that against a higher end team, would be a very effective team. They were dominant up front, but they took the ball out wide. They had a mixture of stuff. They didn't give up too many penalties. And the only thing is they had still quite a number of handling errors and turnovers and stuff. But it was actually a really good structured game. It didn't turn into like this wild, like against Australia, where we're just running from everywhere. It seemed to me like they had decided they were going to play it as if it's a serious opponent, and they were going to try to like test their systems and stuff like that. But it was just against an opponent that clearly was outclassed and outmuscled. But for a Springbok fan, I think it was enjoyable, and the Springbok fans got kind of louder and louder as the game went. And for me and Krishna personally, we had 2 goals for the Springboks in the game. Wales should not score any points, and we should score a point a minute. So we should get to 80. And I feel without the Ibn red card, we could have been 2 for 2. The red card, the only thing I would say, look, I feel like there's no excuse for that. Even if it was, and I think the red card is one that we can't complain about and should say that is, it's justified. But I do think, like you said, there is most likely a story of what happened before that, which doesn't excuse the act, but at least can help explain it. And then if I could go on a little segue rant just for a sec, the one thing that I didn't like online from South African fans is some of them, I feel like, went over the top at attacking Ibn. Like his character and calling him a thug and saying they hope he never plays for the Springboks again. Now, look, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I would just say this is a guy that's represented us 140 something times. He's never had a red card. Yes, he's been an enforcer for us, but I don't think you can call Ibn a thug. And I don't know. I met him in person. I don't want to play that card too strong. Seems like a decent guy. I just feel like sometimes we go over the top. It was just whatever he did, then like blood to the head, stupid moment. I just think sometimes online we go too far, and these are people, and we've supported him for so long on one event to turn and call him a thug or other things like that, or question his character, or say you wish he never plays for the Spring. I just feel like I wish as fans we could sometimes, I don't know, keep our humanity and keep some empathy for these players that are, yes, they're well paid. Yes, they're professionals. Yes, they should live up to high standards, but they're also people, and there's some parent's son or some spouse's husband or some child's father. So sorry for that rant. You can cut it out from the...
No, I'm not cutting it out. I'm actually going to expand on it. It's not just the online abuse. It's not only aimed at the players or going over the top. I've on this channel experienced it this past week. People were just way over the top with their comments that they made. I mean, I was being accused of not understanding English properly, to my family pedigree, to the guests on the show's family pedigree, not knowing what to talk about. And I have a problem with that, and I've said it before on Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry. Why can you say something behind the keyboard that you wouldn't say to my face? Why? What gives you that excuse? What gives you that freedom to just say what you want to? There's still a person on the other side of that message, let's call it that. And I've got a serious problem with that, and I'll say it here and I'll say it again. If you want to behave like that on our channel, I'm deleting you and I'm blocking you. End of discussion. You're not welcome. So sorry, Paul. I feel quite strongly about that because I tell you what, I've been abused badly. So I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah. So I feel like with Ibn, first of all, let's just hear what happens. Let's acknowledge that no matter what, there's not an excuse for what he did. I'm sure he feels bad about it. But it doesn't take away from who he's been for us and what he's done for the Springboks and what character he's shown. And I just wish we could all online kind of just remember some of the things that at some point in our life our parents try to teach us about.
Exactly.
Decency and kindness and respect.
I think our parents still taught us when there wasn't any internet around. That's probably the big
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, seeing that we are such an advanced age, you and I. Anyway, I'm kidding. Part of the thing of this game that stood out for me the most is the fact that Wales have dropped so far. You mentioned earlier Dan Biggar and the semi-final in the World Cup in 2019. That's merely 6 years ago. They were in the semi-final of the Rugby World Cup. Now they couldn't string together a proper team. I know it's outside the window, but I mean, they lost with their first team against the All Blacks. They lost against Argentina. They barely beat Japan. They shouldn't have beaten them. What's happening with that team? And I mean, let's move on to Huw Griffin. Huw Griffin was at the match, courtesy of you, thank you very much, or this channel, and he agreed to do an instant reaction with me after the game, standing in the bitter cold, manning up, taking it on the chin, but clearly emotional. I actually felt so sorry for him. And what were your impressions of the Welsh? Let's talk about that before we talk about you. How are they taking this? You know, said there's no tickets being sold. The team seems to be in a decline. What do you think of the situation in Wales?
I think it's difficult. And actually, Envia, I felt really horrible at the end of the night because I didn't see the you instant reaction until after Krishna and I got back to the hotel. And so even though I had an understanding that you most likely doesn't feel great, I was in my Springbok head mindset when I met him. And I feel like I most likely I feel like in retrospect, I should have given him a hug. And I feel like if you give you a hug, he most likely will uh, feel very uncomfortable because he does have an element of British stoicism to him, I'd say is the maybe the correct word. But when I got back to the hotel, the first thing I did was watch his instant reaction. And I really just could see how painful it was. When he was with us, it was painful, but I think it was one level lower already. And I think he was trying not to focus on it too. But it was a difficult thing for him. And for the Welsh spectators, there's a little bit of an air of, I don't know, acceptance kind of in their thing. They know they're in for a difficult. It seems like there's a lot of stuff going on in the Welsh Rugby Union, you know, administrative stuff behind the scenes, as there seems to be more and more these days in rugby. And then they have this big loss of like, you know, a core set of experienced players that left. And I don't remember if it was Dan Biggar or someone else that told me it's not, even though Dan Biggar said the biggest, most painful moment of his rugby career was that loss to the Springboks in the 2019. But I think in 2022, they may have still won the Six Nations or have been close in the top or beaten some of the top teams. So the decline actually happened later than 2019, if I remember correctly right now. I'm hoping someone, if I'm wrong, will correct me.
I know they beat us in 2022. Remember the second test?
Maybe that was it. Maybe that was the thing. That was the thing. They beat us twice, I think, actually, that year. Maybe that was it. Maybe that's the... but so I think it's a difficult thing for them. And, you know, Rassie talked about it a little bit. John Smith talked about it in his discussion with Dan Biggar. He said the Welsh people have something in common with the South Africans that we feel is the one is they're often kind of good working class, kind of, you know, just hard working people. And the second one is that rugby is more than a sport for them. It's almost like a religion. And so I think right now you hear Sia and Rassie try to give them a pep talk. Like I've heard it so many times in different forums this last week of saying, hey, remember South Africa 57-0, people are burning our jerseys. And then 2 years later, we're winning the World Cup. You have a new coach, you have new players. All you need is a little bit of luck and a little bit of momentum. And there's a part of me that believes that that can be possible because we saw it happen. Like I remember from, you know, the 57-0, and then even after that, it wasn't perfect immediately. I think Rassie's initial record was 50%, but he won the big one against the All Blacks and stuff. But I have to tell you, right now, I don't feel like the Welsh believe that. That I just feel like they're, I don't know, what are they now, 12th or 14th in the world? They're like,
11th.
The drop has been huge. And it just felt like a defeated nation. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way to the Welsh people. I know they're proud people and they're be strong and they have fight. But I feel with the rugby right now, they just don't see light at the end of the tunnel. And you was a little bit that way. You was very happy because when we were we went to a little place to have coffee and stuff, it was freezing cold again. And I think the Scarlets game had just started or was just about to start. And his hope was at least that Scarlets would do well. And they did, his club. But I think you know, he's a very level-headed, he's a really smart guy. He's very statistics and numbers oriented. I really like talking to him. And I had a really good impression. Both Krishna and me left saying, we're really glad that we met him. But I think he has a very kind of level-headed and not super optimistic view how quick the turnaround will come for Wales.
And same question I asked you about Harry, meeting him in person and having met him or seen him on your phone screen or TV screen, is it different to what you expected? I think he was taller than I expected.
He was, or I'm shorter than Kristen and I both commented when we saw the photo. I would say it's a mixture. I guess it's the same like with Harry in a sense. Now, Harry has a bit of this larger than life persona. When I watched him on the channel, and I watch almost all the episodes with you and him, he sometimes comes across a little bit as that he has a little bit of that British stoicism, and when you ask him playful questions, he'll answer back in a very serious way. And so I expected that from him, and there's a little bit of that with him. But he's just a genuinely nice guy. He was easy to talk to, and he had to drive. He drove to the game on the day, 2.5 hours from wherever he lives in England. And he had to still drive back after the game. And so we had gone to grab a quick bite and have some coffee. But I knew he had to drive back. And then he just said, have you seen Cardiff Castle? And I said, no, we've been in these events during the day. And so we just didn't get around to it. And so he said, you've got to go. But in America, there is a thing. When I first moved to America, someone said, if someone invites you to their home, don't believe that they mean it. Unless they tell you a date and a time, it's just a way for Americans to be kind and polite. It's idle conversation. And so I often and so you said, hey, you should really go see it. It's worth going to see it. But he didn't just say that. When we were finished drinking coffee and stuff, he said, let me go and show you where it was. And he just walked us there and gave us like a little personal mini tour of it, which was super nice because I knew it was delaying him from making a 2.5, 3 hour drive home in the cold and dark. And so I respected that a lot and enjoyed the tour. He was, as you would expect, very informative and had lots of facts and details.
Interesting. The big thing, of course, is that you managed to secure a wage Springbok jersey for him. And the reason why we sort of tried to plan this for him is because we know we talk about his jersey every single week, and he doesn't have a Springbok jersey in his collection. So now he's got one. Was he at least a little bit excited?
I don't know. I said to you, he didn't look overly excited, but it could be that it was just kind of the British style. Or that he was just not feeling good after the game. I didn't factor that into it. I really hadn't factored in like what it would have felt like if I was on the 0 side of 73-0. Like, first of all, I would not have gone for coffee. I would have just watched that. Would have said, I'm going home now. Leave me alone.
Same, yeah. So I wanted to do at Loftus, but I had to go to the press conference. So I had to stick it out.
And I joked with him and said, I wanted to give that to you before the game, because I was then hoping you would feel compelled to wear it during the game. But he answered in a very serious way that made me feel like, well, not even the joke is funny to him, but because he just said, no, I wouldn't have done that. And so he said, okay, you have to wear it on one of your next shows with Envy. And he said he would do that.
Yeah. No, you better. Right, so now after the game, back to the hotel, and then, of course, you bumped into our very own Rassie Erasmus. I'm not sure if I've got the sequence right, but even if I don't, tell me about talking to Rassie Erasmus in person. What was that like?
So I would say those are the two highlights of players was Rassie and Sia in the hotel. Sia at the event. So Rassie was it was actually the night before the game. And my wife and I had gone for dinner. And Rassie was sitting in the restaurant with a group of friends, talking with their friends. And I really would just wanted to at least say hi to him but I didn't have the courage, and I just felt it would be inappropriate to kind of barge into his personal time with these friends. So we were having dinner, but I asked for a table where I could see the table where Rassie was sitting. And so at some point, his friends left and Rassie got up, and I'm sure it was comical because he looked like he was in a hurry. And in any other circumstance, I would have just let it go. But I kind of jogged behind where Rassie was jogging. He was going to the team room. And I thought, man, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life if I don't try to talk to him. And so when he got to the team room, he actually wasn't going to be with the team. It must have been set up. He was meeting with someone and signing a shirt. So it must have been set up and someone must have told him, hey, it's here. And so he did that. And then there was a father and a young son standing there wanting to take a picture. And so I got to see that first. And it's the first time like I've seen Rassie in a, like where I'm close enough to have some interaction with him. And I was really blown away by it, Envia, because he spoke to the father and the son. Like, there was no sign of, hey, I have an important game tomorrow. There was no sign of, I'm doing this, but I'm actually in a hurry, or I'm annoyed by. He spoke so kindly and softly and gently to the father and the son, and then called the son over to come and take the picture. The father was super nervous and struggling with the camera. And Rassie said, nee, jy moet in die foto wees, kom staan hier, so vra vir hierdie man being me, to take the photo. And he was just like, it's like completely different than you'd expect from her. You know, I don't know, is the word Norse, like I just expected him
Grumpy.
to be kind of pert and a little bit grumpy, even if he did the things, but he wasn't. He was like at a different level. And so then when he was done, I started saying, hey, Rassie, I know you're busy, but would you mind if I just take a photo with you? And instead of just saying, yes, take a photo, he said, wat is your naam? And he asked me about my name and where I was from. And we didn't have I didn't talk tactics with him. I didn't talk about the bomb squad. I didn't talk about why I'm not playing for the Springboks. But it's just a 2-minute conversation, idle talk, me telling him that I really admired him and what he did for the country. I'm super emotional. It's a stupid thing. But he treated me in a way that he didn't have to do, and it would have been good. But he went an extra level. And then the next day, I met a lady in the lobby that was so excited. I sent you a little clip. I actually asked her if I could record it, because she had come to the hotel, didn't know that the Springboks were staying there, walked into the elevator, and Rassie was in the elevator. And I asked her, what was it like? And she described the exact experience that I described. So, yeah, it's a silly thing. So it's a fanboy thing. You meet someone that's your hero, and you hope they don't suck. And then if they're better, so my respect for him and the team has just gone up. I'm sorry that I'm that emotional. Because I'm a 60-year-old man. You shouldn't be a fanboy about sports heroes. But Rassie, I feel, is more than that for the country. And I feel that experience that I had explains for me a little bit why everyone on the team has that same character and stuff like that. I've been in business. I've run large organizations. And they always say, you look to the top, their behavior will determine the behavior of the organization and the values of the organization. And if that's true, then you have to give Rassie a lot of credit. And I'll segue quickly into the Sia thing. It was very cool for me to have Sia signed your leather rugby ball that we bought in Marrakesh. It was very cool to meet him at the event with the other people. But you know what the coolest thing was, Envia? On the morning of the game in the hotel, Krishna and me were hanging out in the lobby again for no particular reason, just hanging out there. And Sia came down the elevator. He saw us, recognized us, and came over to us and said, hi, how's it going? You don't need to do that. That's not no one could criticize you for not doing that. And that little interaction most likely meant nothing to him, but it just meant he is paying attention at a level of detail that you wouldn't expect. So in any case.
Well, I'm a bit stumped. I've got so many goosebumps. I must sort of recover from that, Paul. Tell me, did you speak Afrikaans or English to Rassie?
I spoke Afrikaans, I think. I actually can't remember.
It's interesting.
And I was really, because I'd been at this event, 2 events where, like they always play music and it's loud. And so you're shouting a little bit. So I was hoarse. So I sounded like, I don't know, a guy that smokes 60 pack of cigarettes a day when talking to Rassie. But I think we spoke Afrikaans because I think we spoke Afrikaans and to see English.
That's interesting. Right. In general, the overall experience, which one of the 3 cities that you visited was the best experience for you overall?
So I'd say in terms of the rugby match, it would be Dublin and Ireland. But in terms of the overall experience, by a factor of 10, Cardiff and Wales. And it goes back to what I said earlier. So one, I'm not inclined to hero worship. Like there are not a lot of people that I would say, well, I feel like they're my hero. Nelson Mandela was my hero. Like, so the bar is high. But we've talked about this team and what they mean for the country and what they mean to us personally and how much joy they bring. And so then when you get a chance to meet them, first of all, yes, at 60-year-old, you can have a little bit of fanboy behavior or fangirl behavior in Krishna's case. But really what in your heart you're hoping for is that they just remotely live up to what you imagine is your idealized view of them that most likely can't be true. And then when, as best as you can tell, they are who they are, and you see it in the way they treat children and fans and older people and yourself, man, what more can you ask for? I've already been so invested, Krishna and I, in this Springbok team, and so connected as fans we feel to them. And now it's just a level up. I just feel like every game, every experience will be even better. And I still feel if someone on your channel knows Wilco Louw and his mom, send me her email address, because I actually do want to write her a serious note and just say what an impression her son made on us and my wife. But really, I could do it for almost all of the players. Andre Esterase, Kanan Moody, Bongi, they all have different personalities. But if you had to describe it, if you had to pick a common term, you'd say friendly and patient and nice and gracious. And none of them did the minimum that they could do in any interaction that I watched. They didn't do the, hey, I'll kind of sign, but I'm not really looking at you, or any of that. And I don't know if they learned that from Rassie, because I'd say even Kia asked for, what is your name? That's like a very interesting human, if you just think of human psychology, of a way to connect with someone, is to ask what their name is.
Well, Paul, that was an exceptional episode. Thanks, man. I really felt like I was right there with you. And I just want to explain something again. When you mentioned you mean Huw Griffin, not me.
Yes.
I wasn't there with you. It's
yes, I'm sorry.
sometimes.
I should be more clear on that.
No, it's not. I said to you the other day myself, I'm going to start calling him Griffin or something, because it gets very confusing. Even if I edit afterwards, I'm thinking, why are you talking to me? And it's not me, it's Huw Griffin. So anyway, funny one.
That's
Paul,
exactly.
that was exceptional. Thank you so much for all the trouble you guys went to, you and Krishna both. And thank you for Krishna for going the extra mile and opening doors, or kicking them down almost, if I may say that. Thanks, man.
That's exactly. Yes, Ambia, thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I look forward for talking. I told you before this episode, I thought there was a small chance I might get emotional on it, and it turns out there was a bigger chance. So
yeah, well, I can't blame you. I would have felt the same way, I tell you. Right, like I said, we'll get back to more details about what we're planning. We're definitely not going to let this go. We're going to give you more details in the near future. A couple of people that you've run into on your travels, all linked to the Springboks, all linked to this fantastic thing that this team is building. And I'm looking forward to continuing this. Thanks, Paul. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Ambia.
This is The Long Way to the Game, only on Megaphone Rugby.